We had this unspoken agreement that the bride would always have her own little spot for fun. We agreed, no guitar howling or drunken girls running wild. Little did I know, it would end up being the worst thing for me. It all kicked off a week before the bachelorette party. "Lily, have you picked a place for the party yet?" I asked, setting my phone down and letting it rest on my stomach. From the kitchen came the sound of clinking and a soft curse. I could tell. I'd startled her again. She tends to zone out, lost in thought. "Not yet," Zoe replied, flashing a grin as she walked out of the kitchen, leaning on the doorframe. "I feel like we've already checked out all the spots, and there's nowhere else left." I shrugged and threw out an idea. "Well, I've got one bar in mind. My friends recommended it. They said the drinks are top-notch. Plus, the chef knows what he's doing, so you won't be complaining about hair in the Caesar salad or anything gross." "And what bar is this?" she asked, still not quite sure what I was hinting at. "It's not far from your favorite mall," I said. That was all it took to convince Lily. Within 30 minutes, she was on the phone with her girls, making plans. Meanwhile, I stepped out onto the balcony and gave my friend a call. He works as a bartender at that bar. I asked him when he was working so I could keep an eye on Lily and let him know if anything went sideways. A week later, Lily was all set to go. After a kiss goodbye, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and collapsed on the couch. I threw on some random action flick, the kind that doesn't really make you think, and took a deep breath, letting the chill of the evening settle in. While the movie did its best to put me to sleep, I shot a quick text to my friends, letting them know that next week it was our turn to party. Then, I texted my bartender buddy just to check in. You know, trust but verify. Always a good rule to follow. My eyelids grew heavy, and before I knew it, the dullness of the film had me drifting off to sleep. The next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by the sound of my phone ringing. Alarm I'd forgotten to turn off. It was around 7 a.m., and when I shuffled to the kitchen for some water, I noticed Lily wasn't in the bedroom. She hadn't come home. I checked my phone, and sure enough, there were a ton of missed messages from my friend. He'd been trying to get in touch with me, clearly in a panic. Without wasting a second, I dialed his number. He picked up almost immediately and dropped a bombshell on me. Turns out, my sweet Lily had gone a little too far with the drinking. At first, she'd been fine, keeping it together, but things took a nosedive fast. According to my buddy, the night started with some tipsy giggles and jokes, but soon enough, it turned into a full-blown disaster. First, she climbed onto a table, then moved on to a pole, spinning around like she was auditioning for a stripper role. Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, she toppled into some guy's lap and just stayed there. That's when things really took a turn. After her little impromptu performance, she somehow managed to down 2 more shots of whiskey, and at that point, some guy from the bar literally had to carry her out in his arms. And where did they go? Into the sunset, driving off in a shiny new BMW. My friend even sent me a photo, his fury practically boiling through the screen. Turns out, the car wasn't just some random ride. It was her ex's. I started calling my wayward bride, and she answered the phone with a sleepy meow, telling me she'd stayed the night at her mom's since it was closer to the bar. I kept it short. "I see," and let her know I'd be waiting for her to come home. Then, I started looking for the suitcases, dragging them into the hallway, and popping them open. When she gets back, she can pack her own things. Zoe didn't disappoint. Her nature's always been a bit sensitive, but this time, it seemed like maybe it was too much. "Kitty, I'm back." "Oh, are you leaving for a business trip?" she asked, clearly oblivious to what was going on. "What's going on?" I snapped back. "Zoe, you're leaving my house," I said firmly. She blinked in surprise, then quickly got into a defensive stance, hands on her hips. "Why this sudden panic?" "Explain yourself," she said, eyes wide with confusion. "I'm tired of your mood swings. How long can I deal with this? What's going on? She asked again, still not getting it. Lily, this isn't about a little fun night out. You don't get to get drunk and then ride off in your ex's car, I shot back. She screamed, her voice shrill. You're accusing me of something. Just like that. I had to take a deep breath, pulling myself together. Without a word, I threw my phone at her. As she read the messages, Lily mumbled something about trust in relationships, how the wedding was coming up, and how I couldn't just jump to conclusions. But to me, her excuses sounded hollow, a pathetic defense against the feeling of betrayal. I pointed to the suitcase. I'll have you out in 30 minutes, even if you're not packed. And then I thought, where were her friends in all this? Why didn't they say anything? Were they just as silent about it, giving her a pass on this behavior? It seemed like they all came from the same place, like birds of a feather. But me, I didn't fit in with that crowd.